I came into the fire service as a certified nutritionist and still gained 25 pounds in my first year. I knew how to meal prep, track macros, cook. None of it mattered because none of it was built for the job I was doing. In this video, I'm gonna show you the 3 simple steps I used to lose that 25 pounds in just 16 weeks that actually worked around station meals, 6 calls after midnight, and regulars that always seemed to miss me even though I saw them every day. And the most important place that I started, the thing that makes everything else work, was figuring out how many calories I should actually be eating. Now here's the problem. The fitness industry had originally convinced me that I had to calculate my BMR, dial in every single macronutrient, fats, carbs, protein, and hit perfect numbers every single day just to see the results I wanted. And I tried that, but after running on 2 hours of sleep after a shift, I found myself spending more time planning what I was gonna eat than I actually was making and eating my food. And I was never able to stay consistent because of it. So I ended up doing a simple thought experiment and asked myself a question. If there were 2 different people, who makes more progress over the course of 5 years? The first person, who is absolutely perfect, doesn't miss anything, but then ends up burning out for another 2 weeks at a time, we just rinse and repeat? Or is it gonna be the second person who isn't necessarily perfect, but stays at an 80% consistency the entire time without entering into that cycle? To me, the answer is obvious because I still wanted to have a life. So I ditched the complicated formulas and followed one simple equation, which was my goal body weight times the number 12 to 13 for my fat loss calories. And here's the thing, it wasn't an extreme deficit, but because of that, I wasn't surviving on fumes. And yeah, I didn't lose 15 pounds in 2 weeks, but I consistently lost 2 pounds per week for months without losing strength, muscle, or energy. And what's more, when it was this flexible and I worked inside of a range, it worked with communal meals around the station. Fast forward 16 weeks and I had dropped the 25 pounds and I was in the best shape of my life. And here's the thing, it wasn't just me. My client Kyle came in as a powerlifter who had been under eating and overtraining for years. He was lifting 5 or 6 days a week before shift until he ended up tearing a hamstring. I got him eating at a range that gave his body the energy it actually needed, and he lost 40 pounds in his first 90 days. By the way, if you want access to the free resources that Kyle got started with, they're linked in the description. And that was the simple rule for both of us. If we wanted to burn fat, all we had to do was focus on our goal body weight and multiply it by the number of 12 to 13. That was my daily calorie range that kept me consistent for long periods of time. And that is where the change actually happened. Now, once I got the calories figured out, I realized that wasn't the entire picture because if I wasn't careful, I was gonna lose more muscle than fat. So the next thing I had to simplify was my protein intake. Now, let's be honest, the fitness industry has turned protein into a buzzword and I bought into it, just like everybody else. I mean, have you gone shopping for your crew in a grocery store lately? Every label, every snack, every ad is screaming high protein at you. And the gold standard I kept hearing, and I'm sure you have too, is 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now, when I actually tried to hit that number every day, which was for me close to 200 grams, I realized how unreasonable it was and honestly, kind of miserable. And the more I looked into it, the more I noticed the people pushing it the hardest had something to gain by me believing that. Anyways, when I was calculating every macro down to the gram, I was spending an hour figuring out my nutrition and another 30 or 40 minutes just making it all for a 5-minute meal, you know, firehouse style. But the truth was, it sucked all of the enjoyment out of eating, and it fell apart completely the moment a shift got busy, which was always. So we stripped it back, and I focused only on protein and calories and applied the newer scientific data that showed there were no additional benefits past 0.75 grams per pound of goal body weight. And the results astonished me because I actually got better. I maintained my muscle mass and lost fat at the same time with none of the time and the energy drain that came with chasing perfect macros. It really is this simple. I eat protein at 0.75 grams per pound of goal body weight. I lock in my calories and protein and let everything else take care of itself. And it actually opened up the door to enjoying other types of food because it didn't have me so protein focused. The recurring lesson here is that simplicity and consistency are always going to beat perfection. Now, these first two steps were getting me leaner and stronger, but I also realized that fat loss meant nothing if the job was going to take me out early anyways. Because we know the top contending killers of firefighters is heart disease and cancer. And this last step is the one that actually does something about both, which is your fiber and your saturated fat intake. Couldn't have cared less about fiber and saturated fat when I first started, but that changed when I got into the fire service and realized that I was already at elevated risk for heart disease and cancer. If I wasn't careful, I was going to stack even more risk on top of a career that was already working against me. And I hate to say it, but I saw this firsthand. In my first year, I saw 2 occasions of this up close. Right before I started, a captain at my department, Jeffrey Brozich, died of a cardiac arrest in the middle of the night, and his own crew was the one who had to respond to the call. Then, a year and a half later, my uncle, Sean Goldie, the reason that I got into the fire service, died of cancer just 6 months into his retirement. And the most apparent thing to me in both of these situations was knowing that they weren't unique stories. So, I went and I learned what I could have control over. And that's when I found that fiber has a positive correlation with a reduced rates of several types of cancers, cardiovascular disease, and even IBS. You ever met a firefighter with IBS before? Now, elevated saturated fat, on the other hand, correlates with an increased cardiovascular disease by every meta-analysis out there done by human randomized control trials. So what does this mean? They're inversely related. So I built one equation to manage both. I took my daily calories and I divided them by 100. That number became my minimum daily fiber intake and my maximum daily saturated fat in grams for both. This was way easier to follow than complex guidelines, and I was protecting myself without having to think about it. Just like everything else here, this doesn't have to be some kind of perfect equation or 4 servings of Metamucil. It just needs to be practical and simple enough to take out decision fatigue, especially when you run a station life. All right, quick recap. I lost 25 pounds of fat in 16 weeks, and Kyle lost 40 pounds in 90 days, not by being perfect, but by following 3 simple equations, which was my goal body weight times the number 12 to 13 for calories. It was 0.05 grams per pound of goal body weight for protein, and it was my calories divided by the number 100 for my fiber floor and my saturated fat ceiling. Now, if you want help applying a full system of this stuff with your schedule and your station life, that's what I do. I've coached over 500 career firefighters to drop 20 to 40 pounds, improve their mobility, and get their energy back in 16 weeks. If you want to see the full breakdown and explanation of the program, then hit the one-on-one coaching link in the description. Okay, so what we didn't cover today is the workout side of this, because nutrition got me leaner, but I still had to figure out how to train around a shift schedule without breaking my body down in the process. If you want to see exactly how I did that, you can find it in this video right here. Remember, being in shape is part of the uniform. I'll see you in the next one.